In late September 2015, only a couple of months after my father died, a friend from childhood and I decided to walk the Portuguese Camino from Oporto to Santiago de Compostela in the northwest of Spain, a distance of some 230 kilometers. We planned to complete it in 2 weeks, a week through the north of Portugal and a week in Galicia, the Celtic part of Spain, where they play the bagpipes and speak their own language. We met in Oporto, where we spent the night and picked up our Pilgrim Passports. It is essential to carry this because on arrival in Santiago, you are not given a certificate of completion unless you have walked at least 100 kilometers and have your Pilgrim Passport stamped at various places along the way to prove it. It's also quite fun getting the stamps and to see one's booklet gradually getting filled. Now, the Portuguese Camino is one of many routes to Santiago de Compostela and by no means the most famous. That honor is held by the Camino Frances, which starts on the French side of the Pyrenees. The Camino de Santiago is the last of the great European pilgrimages, and in recent years, particularly since the turn of the millennium, there's been a big revival, with now literally hundreds of thousands of people completing the course each year. Some pilgrims are devoutly religious, while others are primarily in it for the adventure and the exercise. However, as my friend and I discovered, the pilgrimage is also an inner journey, and on the way we were confronted with ourselves, not only as a result of physical exertion, but also from a rather unexpected level of self-awareness and self-discovery that seems to be part and parcel of walking the Camino. For when a pilgrim is on the Camino, he or she comes to inhabit a liminal space that arises from no longer being in familiar surroundings and also constantly on the move. This allows the unconscious and the heart to surface more often than they normally would. In addition, there are continual meetings with other pilgrims. Conversations flow comparatively easily, and people are much more willing to expose their vulnerabilities to one another than they would be in normal circumstances. For many people, the Camino is very much a spiritual journey, and at Finisterre, which we visited by car after completing our walk, we met an Irish bus driver who had walked the Camino Frances several times, and in doing so had found a profound sense of meaning and purpose in his life that he was convinced he would not otherwise have experienced. We walked on average around 15 kilometers a day, though on the last day coming into Santiago, including some steep inclines, the distance was close to 22 kilometers, and we were exhausted on arrival. Yet, coming into the cathedral square, we were overwhelmed by the magnificence of the cathedral itself and the general sense of joy and exaltation exhibited by the many recently arrived pilgrims congregating around. In addition, a lone Galician piper was playing near an archway where the acoustics were good, and that certainly added to the ambience. On its exterior, the cathedral has several statues of St. James in pilgrim garb, a figure we saw many times on our walk. He wears a distinctive broad-brimmed hat and carries a staff with a scallop shell attached to it. For me, the pilgrimage was very much an inner journey, which helped me to get out of my head and much more in touch with my heart. And our trip was not over when we arrived at Santiago. We hired a car a couple of days later, and as well as going to Finisterre, literally the end of the earth, we headed east to Santander via the beautiful cathedral cities of Leon and Burgos. At Santander, we took an overnight ferry to Portsmouth. The next morning, as we came closer to the Isle of Wight and the English coast, the sun was shining, and we were accompanied by dolphins cavorting in the bow waves. A fitting end to what turned out to be a magical trip, and one that greatly exceeded whatever expectations I might have had. Thank you.